300 people. 300 witnesses watching my stepmother rip my dress apart at my own brother's wedding. Security moving toward me like I'm the criminal. Her screaming for them to throw me out like garbage. And in that moment, as fabric tears and champagne glasses freeze mid-air and every phone in that room turns to record my humiliation, my husband, the man she just mocked for being ordinary, takes one step forward and says 5 words that will destroy her entire world. Who touched my wife? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I show you how public shame became the greatest victory of my life, I need you to answer something honestly, and I want you to drop your answer in the comments right now because this matters. If someone spent years convincing you that you were worthless, invisible, a mistake that shouldn't exist, and then one day karma showed up and obliterated them in front of everyone they ever tried to impress, would you feel guilty? Would you feel sorry for them? Or would you finally breathe? Comment your honest answer because by the end of this story, you might change your mind completely. And listen, if you've ever been the black sheep, the scapegoat, the one person at the family table who everyone pretends not to see, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about revenge, it's about the moment you stop apologizing for taking up space in a world that never wanted to make room for you. This is my story. My name is Sophie. And this is about the night my stepmother's cruelty finally caught up to her. And how sometimes the quietest person in the room becomes the loudest name everyone remembers. So let me take you back, way back, to the moment everything changed. I was 11 years old when my mother died. Cancer. The kind that doesn't care how many prayers you say or how tightly you hold someone's hand. 6 months after we buried her, my father brought home a woman named Veronica. I'll never forget the sound of her heels clicking against our hardwood floors for the first time, sharp and deliberate, like she was marking territory. She wore this crimson lipstick that never smudged and perfume so expensive it made the air around her feel heavy, suffocating. At first I wanted so desperately to love her. I wanted her to fill the massive, gaping hole my mother left behind. I even tried calling her Mum once. We were sitting at dinner. I can still see the moment perfectly. I passed her the salt and said, "Here you go, Mum," with this hopeful little smile on my face. She stopped moving. Her fork hung in midair. She slowly turned her head towards me, and the look in her eyes, I'd never seen eyes that cold before. "Never call me that again," she said, her voice like ice cracking. "You had a mother. Past tense. That chapter of your life is over. Learn to move forward." My father was sitting right there at the head of the table. He looked down at his plate, swirling his wine, pretending the most interesting thing in the world was happening in that glass. He said nothing. Not one word. That silence broke something inside me that never fully healed. It taught me that love was conditional, that protection was optional, and that sometimes the people who are supposed to save you are the ones who hand you over to the wolves. From that night on, I became invisible in my own home. Veronica's son, Marcus, her biological golden child, he could do no wrong. New gaming systems? Marcus. Private tutors even though his grades were fine? Marcus. A brand new BMW at 16 even though he'd already failed his driving test 3 times? Marcus. Meanwhile, I wore hand-me-down clothes from cousins I'd never met, 2 sizes too big, smelling like someone else's life. My meals came last, after everyone had finished, usually cold leftovers scraped onto a plate like an afterthought. And my achievements? Completely invisible. I made honor roll once, straight A's across the board. I was so proud. I put that report card on the kitchen counter where everyone could see it. Veronica picked it up, glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds, then dropped it back down like it was junk mail. You should be grateful Marcus set such a high standard in this family," she said without even looking at me. "It pushes you to try harder. My accomplishments weren't mine. They were reflections of him. Everything good in my life, according to her, existed because of him. My father turned into a ghost. Every evening, same routine. Pour bourbon, swirl, avoid eye contact. Whenever Veronica said something cruel, which was constantly, he'd suddenly remember urgent emails or phone calls that couldn't wait. His silence hurt worse than her words because it confirmed what I was terrified to admit. I didn't matter. Not to him, not to her, not to anyone in that house. By the time I was 17, I'd perfected the art of disappearing. I learned which stairs creaked, how to open doors without sound, how to cry silently into my pillow so no one would hear. I became a ghost in my own home, which is exactly what she wanted. The day after my high school graduation, while everyone was still sleeping, I packed a single duffel bag. Everything I owned fit in one bag. I had $340 in cash, money I'd saved from babysitting and tutoring jobs I never told anyone about. I walked down that driveway as the sun was coming up, and I didn't leave a note. What would I have even said? Thank you for teaching me that family is just a word people use to justify cruelty. I was 18 years old, completely alone, and terrified. But you know what? I was free. And sometimes freedom is worth more than safety. Life after leaving was brutal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I rented a studio apartment in the kind of neighborhood where you hear sirens every night and don't ask questions. The walls were so thin I could hear my neighbors breathing. The ceiling leaked when it rained. In winter, I'd wake up and see my breath in the air like I was sleeping outside. But it was mine. That matters more than you might think. I worked at a 24-hour diner, pulling double shifts until my feet swelled so badly I had to soak them in ice water before bed. During the day, I took community college classes, studying in the library until security kicked me out at closing time. I survived on instant ramen and pure spite, decorating my tiny space with dollar store string lights and convincing myself that someday, somehow, I'd prove them all wrong. That's where I met Thomas. 2 a.m, middle of a thunderstorm. He came into the diner absolutely drenched, laughing because his umbrella had turned inside out and snapped in half. Most people would have been furious. He thought it was hilarious. He sat at the counter, ordered coffee and pie, and we just started talking. There was something different about him immediately. No arrogance, no performance, no need to prove he was important or successful or better than anyone else. He asked questions and actually listened to my answers like they mattered. We started meeting during my breaks. Then those breaks turned into walks after my shifts. Those walks turned into all-night conversations about dreams and fears and the people we wanted to become. I fell in love slowly, then all at once. Not because of anything he owned. I didn't even know what he owned, but because of the way he looked at me. Like I was visible, like I mattered, like my thoughts and feelings and existence weren't inconveniences to be tolerated. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony at the courthouse gardens, wildflowers everywhere, sunshine, no family drama, no expensive reception, no politics, just us and a promise that we'd build something real together, something that couldn't be torn apart by cruelty or indifference. He gave me a simple platinum band and said something I'll never forget. The world doesn't get to decide your worth, Sophie. Only you do. And I really hope someday you'll see what I already see. At the time, I had no idea what he meant. Thomas lived simply. He drove a reliable car, nothing flashy. He cooked dinner most nights. He insisted on splitting chores equally. He never mentioned money, never flaunted anything. Never made me feel like I was less than him in any way. I assumed we were both just ordinary people trying to build an ordinary life. That assumption made what happened later absolutely devastating. In the best possible way, 5 years passed, 5 peaceful, quiet, beautiful years. Then one afternoon, a thick cream envelope appeared in our mailbox. The moment I saw the handwriting, my entire body went cold. Elegant, precise, cruel. It was from Veronica. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Marcus Reynolds and Isabella Hartley." Gold embossed lettering that probably cost more than my rent. And at the bottom, in her perfect cursive, a personal note. "Do try to dress appropriately this time, Sophie. We'd hate for you to stand out for the wrong reasons." I stared at those words until they blurred. Thomas found me at the kitchen table, holding that invitation like it might explode. "You don't have to go," he said gently. "They've already taken enough from you." Every part of me wanted to agree, wanted to throw it away and pretend it never arrived. But something inside me, something that had been growing stronger over 5 years of building my own life, refused to hide. "I'm going," I said quietly. "Not for them, for me. I need to prove to that scared girl I used to be that she survived." Thomas studied my face. "Then I'm coming with you." I shook my head. "You don't understand what they're like. They'll tear you apart just for sport." He smiled. "Sophie, I've dealt with people like that my entire life. I can handle your family." I had no idea what he meant. To me, Thomas was still the guy who fixed our sink himself and insisted on doing dishes. I didn't know he was Thomas Ashford. I didn't know his family name was on buildings across 3 continents. I didn't know he'd hidden his identity because he wanted someone to love him for who he was, not what he had. In the weeks before the wedding, old memories started clawing back. I'd wake up from nightmares about being back in that house, small, silent, invisible. I bought a dress, soft lavender with delicate beading. It wasn't designer, it wasn't expensive. But when I put it on, I felt beautiful. I felt like myself. Thomas came up behind me, wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You look like hope." But even his words couldn't erase the anxiety twisting in my chest. The morning we left, Thomas held my hand in the car. "Whatever happens today," he said, "remember this. You're not that frightened child anymore. You survived. You built a life. You became someone extraordinary. Don't let her rewrite that story. I wanted to believe him, but fear has a way of dragging you back to the person you used to be." I kept hearing Veronica's voice. "Some people are born to lead, Sophie. Others are born to follow. You've always known which one you are. Those words used to destroy me." But as we drove toward that venue, I realized something had changed. I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd rebuilt myself piece by piece with no help from the people who were supposed to love me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a wedding. It was a test, a performance, a trap. And I was walking into it with my eyes wide open, completely unaware that by the end of the night, Veronica's entire world would collapse in front of everyone she'd spent years trying to impress. And the woman she called worthless would become the only name anyone could remember. The venue looked like something out of a magazine. White marble everywhere, fountains that never stopped running, crystal chandeliers the size of cars. Everything screamed money, the kind of obscene, worshipped wealth that Veronica treated like religion. The second Thomas and I walked through those doors, every head turned. Not in welcome, in judgment. You could feel it, that collective assessment. Who invited her? Why is she here? Doesn't she know she doesn't belong? Veronica stood at the top of the grand staircase, covered in diamonds, hair in an elaborate updo that probably took 4 hours. The moment she saw me, her smile flickered, then returned sharper. "Well," she announced loud enough for everyone to hear, "look who decided to grace us with her presence. I wasn't entirely certain you'd have the courage to show your face after everything. That word, everything. It carried every insult, every dismissal, every moment she made me feel worthless. I forced a neutral expression. It's Marcus's wedding. I came for him. She laughed, cold and sharp. How noble. Her eyes shifted to Thomas, scanning him like he was merchandise. And this must be your husband. The way she said it made it sound like an insult. I must say you've exceeded my expectations, though I hope he didn't select your outfit. He has rather economical taste. Her friends laughed behind champagne glasses. My beautiful lavender dress suddenly felt cheap under their stares. Thomas started to respond, but I squeezed his hand. Please don't. She's not worth it. The ceremony was beautiful. Isabella looked radiant. Marcus looked happy in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. For a moment, I forgot where I was and just witnessed two people beginning their lives together. But peace never lasts in houses built on control. After the ceremony, we moved to the reception. Crystal glasses, laughter, music. I tried to stay quiet at a corner table with Thomas, but I could feel Veronica's eyes on me constantly, making sure everyone knew I existed so they could judge me properly. When it was time for family photos, I hoped she'd forget about me. I would have been fine watching from the side, but Veronica had other plans. Sophie, she called out, her voice cutting through everything. Come along, we're taking a family portrait. Reluctantly, I walked toward the setup. The photographer tried to arrange everyone. Marcus and Isabella in the center, Veronica beside them. Me at the very end, practically off the platform. Just as he was about to shoot, Veronica held up her hand. Hold on. Could we have her step back further? She's ruining the composition. Guests snickered. The photographer looked uncomfortable. Mom, the arrangement is fine. No, Veronica insisted. It's all right. Sophie understands. She's always been aware of where she belongs. My throat tightened. Hundreds of eyes on me, some uncomfortable, others entertained. I smiled and stepped back, but even that wasn't enough. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a venomous whisper that still carried. You should have stayed away. Nobody wanted you here. You're an embarrassment. You always have been. Thomas stepped forward, but I shook my head, eyes already burning. I came for Marcus. Not your approval. Something about my calm tone enraged her. Maybe she hated that I wasn't breaking. Because suddenly her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, nails digging into skin. Do not speak back to me at my event. She hissed loud enough for half the room to hear. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I tried to pull free, but her grip was iron. Then came the sound. The sharp, unmistakable tear of fabric. My sleeve ripped clean away, hanging by threads. Time stopped. I stared at my torn dress, at her hand still gripping my wrist, at 300 shocked faces. Then Veronica pointed at the exit, voice rising. Get her out! She's humiliated this family for the last time. Security. Remove her now. The guards looked uncertain. Isabella's smile vanished. Marcus stood frozen. I could feel every eye boring into me, whispers like poison. Some sympathetic, others gleefully entertained. My heart pounded so hard I couldn't hear anything else. Thomas stepped forward, voice calm but carrying an edge I'd never heard. Let go of her. Right now. Veronica's eyes snapped to him, full of disdain. Who exactly do you think you're addressing? This is private family business. You're fortunate we even let you through the door. He didn't move, didn't blink. Let her go. The silence was suffocating. Veronica scoffed, turning to security. Do your jobs. Remove them both if necessary. One guard hesitated. Mom, perhaps? Now, she barked. They took a step toward us. Thomas reached for my hand. Then a deep voice echoed from the entrance. Is this how you treat invited guests, Mrs. Reynolds? Every head turned, expensive shoes clicking on marble. The atmosphere shifted instantly. People whispering frantically. Thomas released my hand and walked forward, his entire presence changing into something cold and authoritative. "I thought this was a celebration," he said, voice carrying effortlessly. "Not a public execution." Veronica blinked. "Excuse me? Who do you think you are?" He tilted his head slightly. "You're about to find out." The room fell silent. Even the orchestra stopped. And for the first time ever, I saw genuine fear flicker across Veronica's face. She knew. This wasn't my humiliation anymore. It was the beginning of hers. Nobody moved. The entire ballroom held its breath. I could still feel my torn dress, heart hammering, dignity hanging by a thread. Veronica stood confident she'd won, that she'd finally put me in my place. Then Thomas spoke, voice low and terrifying. "Who put their hands on my wife?" The word wife echoed like thunder. Every whisper stopped. People exchanged stunned glances. Veronica blinked in disbelief, then laughed mockingly. "Your wife? Perhaps you should invest in a proper wardrobe, something that doesn't fall apart so easily." Her friends giggled. Thomas's expression didn't change. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, pressed one button. Within seconds, 2 men in black suits entered, walking straight to him like soldiers. "Mr. Ashford," one said, "we didn't anticipate your arrival this early." The room went silent. Mr. Ashford. The name hung heavy. People began whispering, searching phones frantically. Veronica's hand slowly released my sleeve. She stared, eyes wide, confidence draining. "Ashford," she stammered. "As in Ashford Global Holdings?" Thomas nodded once. "That's correct." His voice turned to ice. "And unless I'm mistaken, this entire property, the catering, florals, security, even the photographer, are all contracted through my subsidiaries. So technically," he stepped toward her, "you just publicly assaulted your primary sponsor's wife." Gasps were deafening. Phones recording everything. Marcus went pale. Isabella covered her mouth. Even waitstaff froze in shock. Veronica tried to recover, voice shaking. "I had no way of knowing. I didn't mean any disrespect." Thomas raised his hand, cutting her off. "No, you meant every word, every insult, every moment of cruelty." He turned to the guards. "You can escort her out instead." They stood uncertain. Then one straightened. "Yes, sir. Right away." Veronica stumbled backward, voice rising to a shriek. "You cannot do this! This is my son's wedding, my family, my event. Your family!" Thomas interrupted sharply. "Should be ashamed." He addressed the entire crowd. "Let this remind everyone. Status and wealth mean nothing when you've lost your humanity." I stood frozen, watching the woman who terrorized me for years being escorted out. She shouted empty threats about lawyers and connections, but nobody would look at her. Guests whispered, recording, sharing in real time. For once, I wasn't the person everyone whispered about. Thomas removed his jacket and draped it over my shoulders, covering my torn dress. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, eyes warm again. I nodded, struggling for words. "You didn't need to do that." "Yes," he said firmly, "I absolutely did." Isabella stepped forward, eyes red. "Mrs. Ashford, I'm so incredibly sorry. We had no idea. Her sincerity was genuine." I nodded. "It's not your fault." "Some people mistake cruelty for class." Marcus found his voice. "Sophie, I had no idea she would." Thomas cut him off with a look that made Marcus step back. "You allowed it. For years. That's enough." The band didn't dare play. No laughter, no clinking glasses. Just heavy silence broken by Veronica's fading voice outside. Thomas turned to me. You're walking out with your head high, he said, offering his hand. Not as the girl they pitied, but as the woman they'll never forget. We walked out together past that staircase where Veronica first greeted us, past shocked faces now looking at me with awe instead of judgment. Outside, cool air felt like freedom, the sky wide and endless. At our car, Thomas paused. You know, he said, I was planning to keep my identity hidden longer. I smiled faintly. So much for that. He laughed softly. She earned the right to know. But more importantly, you deserved to see what true protection feels like. For a long moment I watched him. This man who defended me not from ego, but because he couldn't stand seeing me hurt. As we drove away, the mansion's glow faded. I could feel the balance shifting after years of silence. Veronica had made me feel microscopic. That night, she became small, stripped of the only thing she valued, control. I looked at Thomas. You turned humiliation into justice. He smiled, eyes on the road. No, Sophie. You did that when you walked in with dignity, knowing what awaited you. I leaned back, years of pain loosening its grip. For the first time in forever, I wasn't angry or broken. I was free. Inside that mansion, they were still whispering my name. But now it carried different weight. Not shame. Power. The next morning, my phone exploded. Messages, calls, notifications faster than I could process. At first, I thought it was just family gossip. But when I opened a link, I froze. Billionaire's wife assaulted at wedding. Stepmother removed by security. The headline was everywhere. Photo of me in Thomas's jacket, torn dress visible, Veronica's shocked face in the background. The video had gone completely viral. Millions of views, people dissecting every second. Some called it karma, others bravery. Some called it the greatest wedding drama in history. All I thought was how strange it felt to finally be seen. For years, Veronica made me invisible. Now the world watched her downfall in real time. By noon, my father appeared at our door. He looked older, smaller, like the weight of complicity caught up to him. He stood in the doorway, shifting uncomfortably, unable to meet my eyes. Sophie, he finally said, voice rough. I didn't realize it had gotten that severe. I looked at him carefully, years of hurt flooding back. You didn't stop her either, Dad. Not once. He exhaled slowly, shame flickering. You turned out stronger than I imagined, he whispered. Your mother would have been proud. That was the closest to an apology I'd get. And somehow it was enough. I didn't need groveling. I just needed him to recognize what he'd failed to do. News about Veronica spread like wildfire. Her image crumbled overnight. Sponsors dropped her from every charity board. Partners cancelled contracts. Terrified of association, her social circle vanished like smoke. I didn't celebrate her destruction. I didn't need to. Life had handled it. Days later, Marcus reached out. When his name appeared, I hesitated before answering. Sophie, he said quietly, guilt heavy in his voice. I'm genuinely sorry. I had no idea she was planning that. I sighed. You didn't stop her either. You never did. He was silent for minutes. I know. I should have. You never deserved any of it. I believed him. Marcus was always kind in his quiet, ineffective way. Just too scared to stand up, too comfortable as the favored child. Take care of your wife, I said softly before hanging up. Don't let her become what your mother became. After that, I didn't hear from them again. The mansion, the name, the status, it all faded to noise I no longer cared about. Thomas and I focused on something meaningful. We used his company's foundation to resurrect my mother's dream, a women's support organization she'd wanted to start before cancer took her. We named it Hope House after her middle name. It became a refuge for women who'd experienced what I had, humiliation, abuse, abandonment, manipulation, but still chose to stand tall and rebuild. One evening, as golden light filled our living room, I sat beside Thomas watching news about Hope House's opening. My name appeared on screen. Not as the poor stepdaughter, as Sophie Ashford, co-founder and executive director. It didn't feel like revenge, it felt like closure. Thomas reached over, fingers intertwining with mine. "You know," he said, smiling softly, "your stepmother inadvertently taught you something valuable." I looked at him, half smiling. "What's that? How not to become her?" I laughed quietly, genuinely. Yeah, I guess she did. Outside, city lights began glowing, and I thought back to that wedding night. The look on her face when reality hit. The moment power shifted without me screaming or fighting. That's when it hit me. I didn't win because Thomas was powerful. I won because I stopped needing her approval. I stopped waiting for her to validate my existence. Real power isn't about money or status or mansions. It's about walking away from people who try to break you and never letting them see you shatter. It's about building something meaningful from ruins. A week later, an envelope arrived. From Veronica. Handwriting shakier, tone bitter yet desperate. She wanted to meet, to clear the air, to explain. I read it once, folded it carefully, placed it back. Thomas watched. "You're not responding, are you?" I smiled faintly, feeling lighter than I had in years. "No. Some people don't deserve closure, they deserve silence." He nodded, proud. "That's my girl." That night I stood on our balcony overlooking the city, gentle breeze on my face. I thought about the girl I used to be, trembling in a torn dress, surrounded by mockery and judgment. She didn't exist anymore, replaced by someone stronger, calmer, untouchable. Not because she became hard or bitter, but because she learned her worth was never up for debate. People still talk about that wedding sometimes, about the billionaire who walked in and turned humiliation into headlines. But that's not how I remember it. I remember the quiet strength it took to keep standing. The look in Thomas's eyes when he said I'd never be disrespected again. And the moment I realized I didn't need permission to know my worth. That's the real story. Not revenge. Redemption. Because sometimes the sweetest justice isn't what you do to them. It's the peace you give yourself when you finally let them go. That night taught me something unshakable. When people try to tear you apart to feel powerful, don't fight with rage. Fight with truth. Let them see who you really are. Watch them destroy themselves. And here's what matters most. If you're still carrying the weight of someone who convinced you that you were worthless, I need you to hear this. Your silence was never weakness. It was preparation. Your pain was never meaningless. It was building something stronger inside you than they could ever understand. So right now, if this story hit you somewhere deep, if you've ever felt invisible in a room full of people who should have protected you, I need you to do something. Hit that like button, not for me, for you, for every time someone made you feel small. Share this with someone fighting battles nobody else can see. And subscribe, because I'm going to keep telling stories about the moment quiet people stop being quiet. About the moment broken people realize they were never actually broken. About karma, justice, and the kind of redemption that changes everything. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. Respect isn't given freely. It's earned in silence and returned in thunder. And sometimes the universe has absolutely perfect timing. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember this. You are not the lies they told about you. You are not the names they called you. You are not the box they tried to force you into. You are the person you chose to become despite all of it. And that, my friends, is real power. The kind that can't be bought, can't be faked, and can't ever be taken away. Stay strong, Stay true, and never ever let them convince you that you're anything less than extraordinary. Because you're not just surviving anymore, you're building an empire from the ashes they left behind, and that terrifies them more than anything else ever could.